The air in the Nuremberg market is a thick, heavy thing. It carries the scent of roasting pork and spiced sausages from the vendors, but beneath that warmth lies the sharp, unmistakable stench of the open sewage drains. It is a sensory tangle that defines the morning. Franz stands near the edge of the central square, watching the river of humanity flow past him. Merchants shout their prices, and children dart between the legs of heavy wagons. He feels the weight of his leather apron against his thighs. It is thick, dark, and worn soft at the edges from years of use. He reaches down to adjust the heavy straps, a small, grounding movement in the chaos. He knows he is being watched. It is a quiet, creeping sensation that starts at the back of his neck. A group of weavers stops talking as he passes. A mother pulls her child closer to her skirts, guiding the boy toward the opposite side of the lane. There is no shouting, no overt hostility, only a sudden, hollow silence that follows in his wake. It is a vacuum in the crowd. To the people of Nuremberg, he is not a neighbor or a man with a name. He is a function. He is the shadow that waits at the edge of the law. He sees their eyes dart away, looking at his boots or the cobblestones, as if looking him in the face might invite the very fate he is paid to deliver. He is present in their world, yet he exists entirely outside of it. Franz reaches for the hilt of the broadsword resting against his bench. The steel is cold, even through the leather of his gloves. He lifts it, feeling the familiar, unbalanced weight of the heavy iron. This blade did not come from a common blacksmith. It was an inheritance. He remembers his father, a man with hands as scarred and calloused as tree bark, holding this same weapon during the winter of 1372. His father did not speak of glory or justice. He spoke of the metal. He remembers the old man leaning close, his breath smelling of stale ale, and whispering a warning that Franz carries to this day. He told him that a dull blade is a sin, and that the cleanliness of the steel is the only thing that separates a professional from a butcher. To be a Scharfrichter is to belong to a guild of the necessary. It is a legal reality, a recognized station within the Holy Roman Empire, yet it carries a weight that no guild charter can lighten. The tools of his trade are treated with the reverence of family heirlooms, passed down through blood and iron. When his father handed him the heavy tools of the office, it felt less like a gift and more like a sentence. The sword is heavy, not just with iron, but with the history of every man who has felt its edge. The hunger in his stomach is a dull ache, prompting him to step toward the bakery on the corner of the Fleischgasse. The smell of fresh rye bread is almost overwhelming, a promise of warmth and normalcy. He reaches into his pouch and pulls out a few copper coins, stepping toward the wooden counter. The baker is a stout man with flour dusting his forearms, busy pulling a tray from the oven. Franz clears his throat, but the man does not look up. When Franz places the coins on the edge of the counter, the baker freezes. The man looks at the copper, then slowly raises his eyes to Franz. There is no anger in the baker's expression, only a profound, weary avoidance. He does not reach for the money. Instead, he pulls a cloth over the coins, as if they might be stained. He tells Franz that he has no more bread for today. It is a lie, and they both know it. In the eyes of the law, Franz is dishonorable. He is a man of the scaffold, and to touch his coin is to touch the shadow of the grave. Franz picks up his coins, the metal feeling strangely cold in his palm. He turns and begins the walk home. As he moves down the narrow street, the crowd parts before him like water around a stone. The street, once bustling, suddenly feels empty and long. He walks alone, a man moving through a city that has already decided he does not exist. The sound of the knock is not the light tapping of a neighbor. It is a heavy, authoritative thud that vibrates through the wood of my front door. I do not move from my chair immediately. I sit in the grey light of the early morning, watching the dust motes dance in the air, waiting for the world to demand something of me. When I finally rise, the floorboards groan under my weight. I open the door to find a man in the livery of the Nuremberg city magistrate. He does not step inside. He holds out a thick parchment, rolled tight and bound with twine. I take it, and the weight of the document feels disproportionate to its size. The wax seal is a deep, bruised red, stamped with the official crest of the city council. It is a mark that carries the weight of the law and the finality of the grave. I break the seal and read the script. The ink is dark and precise. The charge is theft, a crime against a prominent local merchant, and the sentence is immediate. There is no room for appeal when the council has already spoken. The prisoner is to be processed before noon. I walk to the corner of my room where my tools are kept. I pick up the heavy iron axe. I run a whetstone along the edge, the sound a steady, rhythmic scrape that fills the silence of the house. I am looking for a single hair to catch on the steel. The blade must be perfect. It is not a matter of cruelty, but of professional duty. A dull blade is a failure of the state, and I will not have my name associated with a botched end. The air in the central square is already thick with the smell of sawdust and damp earth. I arrive as the sun begins its climb toward the zenith, casting long, sharp shadows across the cobblestones. The construction crew is already hard at work. The rhythmic sound of hammers hitting oak beams echoes off the stone walls of the surrounding houses. It is a busy, mechanical sound, devoid of the usual chatter of the market. I walk around the perimeter of the rising structure. The scaffold is a heavy, skeletal thing of dark wood, built to withstand the weight of a man and the tension of the moment. I watch the carpenters as they drive the final pegs into place. I move toward the center, where the platform sits. I reach out and inspect the tension of the ropes. I pull at them, checking for any fraying or slack in the hemp. A rope must be certain. In this trade, uncertainty is a luxury I cannot afford. A group of town watchmen has gathered near the edge of the construction site. They stand in their leather jerkins, their hands resting on the pommels of their swords. They do not look at the carpenters, and they do not look at me. They look at the space where the prisoner will eventually stand. They are here to maintain the order of the law, to ensure that the crowd stays back and the ritual proceeds without interruption. I stand amidst the noise of the hammers and the watchful eyes of the guard, waiting for the transition from construction to execution. The heavy iron gates of the inner ward groan open. The sound is a signal that the morning is over and the business of death has begun. I stand by the edge of the scaffold, my hands clasped behind my back, maintaining the distance that my station requires. I am a spectator, yet I am the most important part of the machinery. Then I hear it, the rhythmic, metallic clinking of iron shackles against the cobblestones. It is a hollow, lonely sound. The prisoner enters the square, flanked by 2 guards. He is not a man of great stature, but the weight of his fear makes him seem to shrink into his clothes. He stumbles slightly, his boots dragging against the stone. As he nears the foot of the platform, he begins to mutter. It is a frantic, breathless prayer to St. Jude, the patron of lost causes. His voice is thin and cracked, barely audible over the distant murmur of the gathering crowd. I watch him closely, not out of malice, but out of necessity. I see his hands. They are trembling so violently that the chains rattle against his wrists with every movement. His skin is the color of wet ash. He looks up at the wooden structure, and for a second his eyes meet mine. I do not blink, I do not offer pity. I simply watch, recording the tremor in his limbs and the terror in his eyes, preparing myself for the moment the prayer stops. The priest approaches the scaffold now. He moves with a practiced, rhythmic grace, his heavy robes sweeping against the rough timber. As he nears the prisoner, a new scent drifts upward through the Nuremberg air. It is the thick, sweet smell of frankincense, clashing sharply with the damp, metallic odor of the Pegnitz River flowing nearby. It is a strange, sensory collision. The divine and the visceral, meeting on a platform built of pine and sweat. I stand several paces back, a shadow against the grain of the wood. I am not part of the congregation, nor am I part of the clergy. I am merely the secular witness, the man who ensures the state's will is met with physical finality. I watch the priest lean in close. His lips move in a rapid, rhythmic dance of whispered Latin. The words are soft, meant for the ear of God, but in the sudden stillness of the square, they seem to carry a weight that settles heavily on my shoulders. The prisoner's eyes are closed now. He sways slightly, caught in the pull of the priest's prayers. It is a delicate, almost beautiful moment of grace, if one can find grace in a place of death. The priest holds a small, silver crucifix before the man's face. I see the prisoner's chest heave, a final, desperate attempt to draw in the sanctified air. There is a profound tension in the air, a feeling that the world is holding its breath. The ritual is nearly complete, the spiritual preparation finished, and the transition from man to soul is being negotiated through incense and ancient verse. I check the weight of my grip on the handle of my tool. The holy work is done, and now the heavy work begins. The priest withdraws, stepping back into the shade of the wooden pillars. A sudden, sharp intake of breath ripples through the crowd, a collective gasp that sounds like a wind rushing through dry leaves. The moment of transition has arrived. The prisoner is positioned. The world seems to narrow until there is nothing left but the line of the man's neck and the cold, indifferent edge of my steel. I move. There is no room for hesitation, no space for the wandering thoughts of a man. To hesitate is to fail the law, and to fail the law is to invite chaos. I step forward, my boots finding purchase on the bloodless planks. I take a breath, steadying my core, feeling the familiar, heavy balance of the blade in my hands. It is a mechanical motion, a sequence of movements I have practiced 1,000 times in the privacy of my own mind. I swing. The motion is singular and heavy. It is not a frantic strike, but a deliberate, crushing descent of gravity and honed iron. There is a momentary resistance, a dull, visceral thud that vibrates up my arms and into my chest, and then the weight gives way. The world does not explode with sound. Instead, there is an immediate, ringing silence. It is a vacuum of noise that feels louder than any scream. The crowd is frozen, a sea of wide eyes and parted lips. The prisoner is no longer a man struggling with prayer, but a finished task. The air in the square feels suddenly thinner, colder. I stand there for a heartbeat, the iron still humming from the impact, waiting for the reality of the silence to settle over the square like dust. The crowd begins to move away, their footsteps a receding shuffle on the cobblestones. They leave behind a hollowed-out space, a vacuum in the center of the market. The spectacle is over, and with it, the public interest evaporates. I am left alone on the platform with the grim, mundane aftermath of the work. The high drama of the execution has dissolved into the tedious reality of cleaning. I reach into my belt and pull out a clean linen cloth. I begin to wipe the blade, moving the fabric in long, slow strokes from the hilt to the tip. The steel is stubborn, holding on to the evidence of its purpose. I work with a quiet, methodical focus, cleaning away the dark, viscous streaks until the metal shines once more under the midday sun. I do not look at the body, though I can hear the heavy, rhythmic thud of the guards moving it toward the cart below. I keep my eyes on the steel. It must be perfect for the next time. Once the blade is bright, I return it to its place. I begin the lonely task of packing my heavy tool chest. I check each instrument, each iron implement, ensuring they are seated correctly in their velvet-lined compartments. The latch clicks shut with a final, heavy sound. I lift the chest, feeling its familiar, punishing weight against my side. My hands are steady, but my bones feel old. The square is emptying, the shadows are lengthening, and I am simply a man preparing to go home. The heavy oak door of my house shuts with a dull thud, cutting off the evening air of Nuremberg. Inside, the silence is immediate and total. I do not light the lamps right away. I stand in the dark for a moment, letting the weight of the tool chest settle on the floor. My shoulders ache from the day, a deep and pulsing soreness that settles into the marrow. I move by memory through the small kitchen. I strike a single flint, and a small, flickering candlelight begins to dance against the stone walls. The flame is weak, casting long, distorted shadows that stretch across the wooden table. I sit and stare at the empty space before me. There is a strange rhythm to this life, a cycle that feels as predictable as the turning of the seasons, yet entirely detached from them. I kill, then I clean, then I wait. I wonder if the people in the market realize that my days are measured not in hours, but in the sharpness of steel and the stillness of the dead. I rise and move toward the small sleeping chamber. Before I lie down, I unstrap the heavy sword from its scabbard and place it on the wooden stand beside my bed. The metal catches the dying light of the candle. It looks peaceful there, resting in the shadows. Tomorrow, the council will likely send another writ. Tomorrow, the sun will rise over the city walls, and I will once again become the man the world fears but refuses to touch. I blow out the candle, and the darkness swallows the room, leaving me alone with the heavy, silent presence of my trade.